Hey, in this video I like to show off making drum beats on the modular synthesizer. I've been a drummer for over 15 years. I played in a bunch of bands, yet I only recently got into modular. So this is for me all pretty new. If you're already experienced with modular synthesizer stuff, you may not learn lots of new stuff in this video, but you can still stick around for just the cool sounds or, encourage me. Drop a comment with some interesting tricks and techniques of your own. Yeah, I hope you enjoy it. Jump right in and let's go. So one particular way I like to make drums on the modular synthesizer focuses heavily on using a sampler, which is then sequenced in various ways. In this case, I'm using the 4MS stereo triggered sampler, which can hold lots of sample banks, and each bank can hold 10 samples. I use it as two separate samplers, left and right, and then sequencing it accordingly. And of course, one of the interesting things you can do with modular is lots of random happy accident stuff, and that's what I really rely on creating my drum beats. So I'll start by patching it up really basically, sending the triggers from two channels of Rene to trigger the samples on the sampler. So hooking up those gate patterns to the sampler. There we go. And yeah, we can start those samples, put in some random gate patterns, get that going. And obviously, you can manually then go in to select the sounds that you like. Let's add in a bass drum, a kick. So this is all well and good, but it's super straightforward. So, I can, again, manually go in and select the sounds that I want, which sample plays when it's triggered. But one thing I like is using the pitch values from a sequencer to select the samples. So let's patch that up. So each of the sequencer's pitch values go into the sample selection for the sampler. Currently I got all the values turned to default, to 0. Which every time plays the same sample. But now if we put in, we change the pitch values, it'll pick a different sample. Sometimes it takes a while to find the samples that you like. Playing around with the sample length a little bit here. So using the pitch values is a kind of like a cheap, dirty way to get a lot of different sounds out of one sequence and out of one module, instead of patching up, kick, snare, hi-hat, all that thing. You can get a gate pattern going and then have the pitch values select the samples, which is getting a lot out of essentially a very simple setup. But again, we want more randomness and happy accidents, as Bob Ross tells us. So instead of dialing in the pitch values that we want, why not use the Rene pitch add function, which I think I've turned on already. So in the functions page, I'll turn on add, which allows us to externally add voltages to add up to the pitch sequence. So let's for example take some random sample and hold-ish values from marbles in this case. I'll start the sequences again. And now let's add in the random voltages to change the pitches and therefore select the samples randomly for us. Let's add a few more gates. Change the random values around a little bit until we find something that we like. So you can already see it's quite easy to stumble upon interesting drum sounds that you might necessarily wouldn't have gotten when you dialed it in manually. So this is a very easy way to just discover interesting things and then develop it further, or add melodies on top of. And of course you can still change the gate patterns around to try what results it might generate. Right, so because we're using a sampler, it's now also very easy to change the banks of samples to drastically change. You've got your rhythms and your sample selection going, so now changing the sample banks is a very quick way to jump to something completely different sounding. So let's just try it. I'm not sure what will happen. Sometimes it sounds like total crap and not really working, and sometimes you stumble upon something that sounds very interesting. So let's just play around with the sample banks and the gate patterns and the random pitch sequences a bit to discover something that works for us. So we'll start the sequences again and then start selecting different sample bank. It's getting a little better. Of course, we can play around with all of the values on the sampler, such as sample length, start position, pitch, etc. And the sounds that you're getting out of it really depend on what type of samples you put on there. I really like working with stuff that I record around the house, like found sounds and field recordings. So let's try and get some of the weirder stuff going. And of course, these samples are not going to be like this, perfect one-shot drum hits. So sometimes they're going to be a little bit out of sync and not really, on the grid. But that's actually kind of interesting because it can create these push and pull grooves, some humanization to it, if you will. mutable instruments plats just off screen. And flip around the sample banks a little bit more until we find something that we like. Let's change up the gate patterns a little bit to get up, try something new. We can get weirder and weirder, of course. Right, so you can get some very crazy stuff going there. One thing, of course, you can do is currently I've got the sequence length the same value, but if we change the length of each of these two sequences, they're not going to loop the same time over and over. So that's again a very quick way to get even more different things. So let's try that real quick. And these are some of my own field recordings. So if you have a longer sample length, they're going to be more textural and not necessarily in sync. If we make them shorter, they're going to be, you know, percussive hits. Changing the sample length to try to get different variations. Playing with the sample length. Nice. Right, so a lot of the things, of course, you can automate. The stereo sampler has some interesting things where you can trigger a reverse, for example. So let me get another gate pattern triggering the reversing of the sample occasionally, which can generate some fun things. Let's do the sample let's get in the marbles thing to influence the sample length on one of these and see what that does. So you can see here it's now occasionally reversing the sample for us. Which you know, can result in some interesting things. Let's get the hi-hat pattern back in for some grounding. I'll change the sample bank to try some different sounds. Right. Instead of randomizing the pitch CVs, the Rene sequencer also allows you on the function page to modify the location of the sequencer, which is also a very easy way to jumble things up. So I'll remove the randomization, or rather have it control the location instead of the pitch values.
Bound by violent mandate. Bound by violent mandates.
There we go. So I'll turn off the pitch modification and instead have the randomization determine the location of the pitch, and let's see what that results in.
Bound by violent mandate. Bound by.
And you can see here that based on the random voltage, it'll jump around the location in the sequence. Nice. Nice. It's so interesting to see just what random happy accidents you could stumble upon, and you know, this is the stuff you can't really make up. It's just the beauty of a random, you know, selection of samples and patterns going on, and that's why I really like this method a lot, really. Right, so there you go. I mean, this wasn't really intended as any kind of tutorial of kind. I mean, we've got Legends as your diff kit and Mylar to do proper tutorials. And again, I'm at the time of recording this, I'm very new to modular, so I'm not pretending wanting to learn you something new. You know, hopefully you enjoy the kind of sounds that I'm putting out and the rhythms that you can generate. I really love making drums and drum rhythms on the modular. So in the next video, I plan to show off the shack mat modules, the night gallop and the white gallop. Maybe we can jumble up things a little bit more using a couple of sequential switches to further, send stuff around the modular. Yeah, again, if you enjoyed this, let me know. And thanks for watching. Bye-bye.